Welcome to part 3 of the newly renovated historic auto attractions in Roscoe, Illinois. Now we are going to enter the brand new expansion of the museum. It's called the East Wing. The old building and the new building are connected through here. This new structure adds an additional 50,000 feet of exhibit space and some bathrooms, which is nice. Again, it just opened, so this is a big deal. I'm really excited to see this. The first thing to see is General and President Ulysses S. Grant's carriage. He had quite a few carriages. I believe I've seen 4 of them, but he bought this one in the summer of 1865, just after the end of the war, while staying in DC, and he used it there until after his presidential terms ended. Grant liked to go fast, and actually got a speeding ticket, and then got arrested while president for speeding. That was the sash of Lieutenant Orlando Ross of Illinois. He served on the staff of General Grant during the Civil War. Here are some more artifacts of his, including the gloves he wore at General Grant's funeral, and the saddlecloth he used for the inaugural parade of President Benjamin Harrison. There's some presidential memorabilia lining the opposite wall. There's a tiny lock of George Washington's hair in there, and here's a snippet of Andrew Jackson's hair. That pen was used by President Eisenhower and a Polish defector to sign his citizenship papers. That envelope was signed by all the pallbearers from Eisenhower's funeral. Here are various invitations to presidential functions over the years. And these are a bunch of First Lady autographs. The first presidential exhibit features lots of cars and some wax figures. This is the Hall of Presidents, a lineup of wax depictions of the commanders-in-chief. Unfortunately, not all of them, mainly the more recent ones. There are wax figures of George Washington, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, and Ulysses S. Grant. Jackson and Grant both look very haggard. There's Herbert Hoover, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. Continuing on to John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and Richard Nixon. Johnson is ominously staring at Nixon from the back. Here's Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush. Then there's Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and there are figures of the 2 most recent presidents, including Donald Trump. That's a pretty good wax figure. And next to him is the current president, Joe Biden. This is the first wax figure I've seen of him, and this one is actually very realistic. This flag flew over the United States Capitol on January 20th, 2021, during President Biden's inauguration. This is, to my knowledge, the largest presidential vehicle collection ever assembled. They have more here than the Henry Ford Museum. This 1938 Cadillac was a Secret Service car used during the Roosevelt, Truman, and Eisenhower administrations. This display case features some FDR memorabilia. There's a monogrammed tablecloth of the Roosevelts, and some other relics from the era. That was Franklin Roosevelt's Panama hat. He wore it at the 1943 Tehran Conference. There's a matchbook from his Oval Office desk, and a piece of wood from his funeral caisson. Here are some more pieces from the times of the 4-term president, including the pen he used to sign the Homeowners Loan Act of 1933. And this was FDR's cane. It was made from the horns of 20 head of Guernsey cattle. There's an interesting picture next to it. Apparently FDR's second inaugural stand was a replica of the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home in Tennessee. It was placed in front of the White House. I had never heard of that. This presidential limousine was used by Dwight D. Eisenhower. It's a 1955 Cadillac 75. Here's a case with some Eisenhower and Truman artifacts. That flag was on the fender of an Eisenhower motorcade car. These gloves were placed on General Eisenhower's casket by his wife Mamie during the funeral. There's the general's hat, shoes, and apparently his favorite hat that he used while president. There isn't too much Truman stuff, but there's a 1949 Truman inauguration book. That's a painting of the USS Williamsburg, the presidential yacht while Truman was president, and it was on board the Williamsburg. This was one of President Harry S. Truman's presidential limousines, a 1950 Lincoln. That's really awesome. Here's another wax figure of FDR. He's in a wheelchair looking very frail, alongside wax Eleanor Roosevelt. This 1939 Ford Deluxe convertible was a Secret Service car that would have followed in Roosevelt's motorcade. This 1965 Cadillac Fleetwood limousine was used by President Lyndon B. Johnson while he was in office. That was one of LBJ's favorite cowboy hats. And those were his glasses. Here's an unopened Air Force One cigarette pack and a vice president table napkin from the Johnson era. President Lyndon Johnson used this pen to sign the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. It was part of his war on poverty. Here is one of First Lady Rosalind Carter's dresses and an eagle made out of peanuts. This presidential limousine was used by Jimmy Carter during the presidency. It's a 1976 Cadillac 60 Special Brougham sedan. They used to also have a Reagan-era car, but it's not on display. That's not all, as there is a second row full of more presidential cars. This place is beyond amazing. This is Donald Trump's Lincoln limousine. He owned and used this one just before the presidency. It was used on the campaign trail in 2016. Official presidential vehicles are now destroyed, so it's really neat to see the car of a more recent president. This 1923 Lincoln belonged to Calvin Coolidge, and was used while he was president. That's very cool. I believe this is new, Herbert Hoover's 1932 Cadillac V16 Imperial Limousine. He may have used this during his last year as president, or more likely in his long post-presidency career. This 1969 Lincoln Lehman Peterson limousine was used during the Nixon administration, primarily to transport visiting dignitaries and congressmen, but Tricky Dick was probably in this car at some point. It was also used in filming the 1999 Nixon movie. There is a wax figure of Richard Nixon in the back seat. This 1986 Chrysler Executive Limousine was owned and driven by Richard Nixon. It used to be on display at the Nixon Presidential Library, but now it's here. Richard Nixon would sit right there. This gorgeous 1962 Cadillac Fleetwood limousine was purchased by a Mexican senator who is very close with Mexican President Miguel Alemán, and this limo was used to transport former President Dwight Eisenhower when he visited Mexico. This one is incredible. President Lyndon B. Johnson's personal presidential limousine. It's a 1965 Lehman Peterson Lincoln Continental. The interior was heavily personalized by Lyndon Johnson himself. He wanted it covered with blue plaid fabric, which is very unique. It also had a TV, 2 bars, 2 stereos, a writing console, and 2 air conditioners. This 1941 Packard Rolston isn't per se a presidential vehicle, but it was owned by John Vernew Bouvier III, the father of Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. So a young Jackie probably rode in this fancy car. This was First Lady Ida McKinley's personal sleigh from the late 1800s. This hearse transported the body of the assassinated President William McKinley during his funeral ceremonies and initial interment in Canton, Ohio, back in 1901. This is fascinating. I saw these McKinley pieces many years ago at the Cruz Automotive Museum in Auburn, Indiana, which sadly closed a few years ago. I wondered what happened to these, so I'm glad they found the perfect home. This is First Lady Lucretia Garfield's mourning dress. She wore this during the funeral of her assassinated husband, President James A. Garfield. This is a piece of rope used to hang Charles Guiteau, who fatally shot President Garfield, though his doctors probably did him in. Here is a grouping of world leader wax figures, including Mikhail Gorbachev, Chairman Mao, Fidel Castro, Emperor Hirohito, Indira Gandhi, Ayatollah Khomeini, Sir Winston Churchill, Anwar Sadat, Yasser Arafat, and King Hussein of Jordan. Now entering Gangsterland, featuring some really phenomenal artifacts of Prohibition-era criminals. This exhibit is larger than it used to be and also has some true crime stuff now. This is John Dillinger's getaway car. He stole this 1932 Studebaker Commander that belonged to the sheriff to escape the police after he robbed more than $75,000 from a Greencastle, Indiana bank. That was the biggest bank robbery in history at that time. Here's a case full of really impressive Dillinger artifacts. John Dillinger was killed outside the Biograph Theater in Chicago after seeing the movie Manhattan Melodrama, and this suit was worn by Clark Gable in that film, the last one Dillinger saw. These guns belong to the Dillinger family. The rifle second from the top is believed to have been the first gun that Lil John Dillinger ever fired. This is a piece of tin ceiling tile from the American Trades Bank in Racine, Wisconsin, which Dillinger robbed in 1933. The ceiling was damaged by a shootout, but Dillinger escaped with 3 hostages in tow. That suitcase was used by Dillinger's gang, and there's the badge worn by the constable during the Little Bohemia raid. This is a piece of the pants that John Dillinger was wearing when he was killed. It was taken from his body that night as a souvenir. And that is the gun that killed John Dillinger. East Chicago police officer Martin Zarkovich fired the fatal shot from this gun in the ambush on Dillinger at the Biograph Theater on July 22, 1934. There's the officer's badge and award. Here are some more Dillinger relics, including a Colt and silencer that was used by his gang. This was one of John Dillinger's pistols. He left it behind during the escape from the Little Bohemia Lodge. And this is Dillinger's death mask. There are a lot of Dillinger death masks at various museums, but they claim that this is the real one taken off of his cold dead face. This is a Bonnie and Clyde death car, a replica of the one that the infamous couple was gunned down in. The real one is at a casino in Primm, Nevada, but this one was used for the 1967 Bonnie and Clyde film starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. This car was shot up with a Thompson submachine gun. These are the real hats that were worn by Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker on the day they were killed. They were both shot about 50 times. There are bullet holes and blood stains in these hats. This revolver was in the death car when they were ambushed on May 23, 1934. This .22 Colt rifle barrel was used by Raymond Harris, a member of the Bonnie and Clyde gang. Bonnie tried to burn this rifle when they were caught robbing a bank. It's definitely damaged and the rest of the gun is gone. This flashlight was used by the Barrow gang. It was left behind after a shootout in Dexter, Iowa. These bullets were recovered from the Bonnie and Clyde death car. This revolver was once carried by mob boss and Las Vegas gambling icon Benny Binion. Here's a photo of Lizzie Borden's jury and a piece of chimney brick from the Lizzie Borden house. Lizzie Borden axe murdered her mother and father with 40 whacks each in their home in Fall River, Massachusetts. These items are from that infamous house. This vault door used to be in the Lexington Hotel in Chicago, which served as a base of operations for Al Capone between 1928 and 1931. This used to be an entrance to one of the dozens of secret passageways in the hotel that led to hidden tunnels connecting Chicago taverns and whorehouses. This 1929 Ford Model AA truck was part of Al Capone's rum smuggling fleet. Liquor would be transported on trucks like these. This 1929 Lincoln Model L was used by gangster bootlegger Jack Legs Diamond. known as the Capone of the East Coast. Here's another car that was clearly used by gangsters. It's a 1932 Cadillac that was bulletproof, and it literally has portholes in the windows to shoot machine guns out of. It's also been shot at. This was Pretty Boy Floyd's pistol. He was formerly public enemy number 1, just like Dillinger. Speaking of Dillinger, this was his personally owned shirt and handkerchief. And this was John Dillinger's bulletproof vest and revolver. He left these behind at the Little Bohemia Lodge when it was raided by the FBI, though he did somehow manage to evade them. There's an original Patty Hearst wanted poster, and a handwritten note by serial killer David Berkowitz. This letter is signed by Edith Delaney, a member of the Jim Jones People's Temple, who died during the mass suicide of the cult, when 909 of them died. There's the autographs of Otis Toole and Charles Manson. This is some original John Wayne Gacy artwork. The mass murderer was an artist, and he made this bizarre thing in 1981. There's a document regarding the Birdman of Alcatraz wanting to be released from Alcatraz. He was denied. And there's an autograph of Jeffrey Dahmer. There's the autograph of James Earl Ray, the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr. That shotgun was used by the Alabama Department of Corrections. There's an old Indiana State Penitentiary riot gun, and a ball and chain from San Quentin Prison in California. And here's some more prison relics, including some from Alcatraz and Joliet. Well, this exhibit is a bit lighter. It has some unique creations. This appears to be a combination of a car, boat, and airplane. This is a wooden car, made completely out of wood. That's highly flammable. That's the bumper car. The body is completely composed of chrome bumpers. Here are some creations made from tractor parts. This one is called Impressed. It received the Guinness World Record back in 1972 for being the world's lowest car, with a total height of 26.5 inches. Here's a gallery of some miscellaneous antique vehicles. This is an 1859 hand-drawn manual tub pumper produced by Hunneman, the first company to manufacture fire apparatuses in the country. This is a Model T without its body, just its engine, chassis, and wheels. This 1925 Studebaker served as a police car in Galena, Illinois. That's a wonderful town where Ulysses S. Grant lived. Oh my gosh, this was Hugh Hefner's car. It's a 1967 Lincoln Continental that was used by Hugh Hefner and his barrage of much younger sexy ladies at the Playboy Mansion. This is one of my favorite things here, the Bicentennial Money Car. This 1976 Cadillac limousine is completely covered with 120,000 coins, mostly 1976 pennies adorning much of the entire body. When Muhammad Ali saw this, he said that it was the only car he'd ever seen that was prettier than him. All of these coins added a ton to the weight of the car. There are candy half dollars and Indian head nickels on top of the car. There are special rare coins placed on the back, including a few ancient Roman coins. This is a 1906 Waltham Orient buckboard, a very old car. Here's another ancient one, a truck from 1909. And this is a 1908 Buick Stakebed truck. These were primarily used by telephone companies. Finally, here's a very rare 1937 Dodge with a long wheelbase. These were designed to be more handicap accessible. So this new addition to the museum is absolutely epic so far, but that was just half of it. So go view part 4 to continue the tour. All episodes are linked in this video's description. Thanks for watching.